You are looking, not live, but you are looking at the man who is named Eastern Conference Coach of the Month. In the middle there with the whiteboard. You are looking now at two key members of the 76ers bench core, one of the best in the NBA, Shake Milton and Dwight Howard at shoot-around earlier today. Tyrese Maxey going up against, who is that man? Yes, Joel Embiid, after a couple games idle for the Sixers, back at shoot-around, and we are hopeful tonight that he will be back in that number 21 uniform as the recently minted Eastern Conference Player of the Month. How you doing? Welcome in. 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot. I'm Brian Seltzer. Lauren Rosen, hello to you. 76ers trying to make it a perfect three-game road trip tonight.
And how sweet that would be indeed, Seltz. This is a team that's really become a good road team. They're yet to lose when all the starters play, and in theory, all the starters are again available tonight. Would be really cool to see them cap this road trip perfectly, head back home for a couple exciting matchups before they have another long road trip. So we talked a lot about it, but getting in a good rhythm on the road is so key for this team, and it's really cool to see them starting to do that.
So the 76ers come into tonight's game against Charlotte at Spectrum Center with a record of 15-6. That's 2 games better than the next closest team. That would be Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference. Charlotte creeping up the standings. They're currently 8th in the East with a record of 10-11. The 76ers, like Charlotte, they have each won 3 games in a row. Sixers have knocked off Minnesota and Indiana on this road trip already. And the Sixers 8-2 in their last 10 games. And I'm still, Lauren, not quite sure, even though it's been 2 days since we last saw them, how the Sixers pulled out that game Sunday at Bankers Life Fieldhouse.
Well, it was all about that zone defense, Seltz. What a fun thing to watch those guys do and then succeed on the offensive end as well. And we just heard from Doc Rivers, who said that zone isn't necessarily something that they're going to be using regularly, but when it's needed, they'll do it again. They're not afraid to throw that lineup and that zone back out there. And it was cool to see how successful they were, especially with Matisse Thybulle and Ben Simmons at the top.
Sixers closed out that game on Sunday, a 119-110 win on a 31-6 run. The zone totally threw the Pacers off. Matisse Thybulle was right in the thick of things. He's been getting better and better seemingly. And this really, Lauren, was a stretch that ignited the run early on in the fourth. Sixers gradually chipped away, and sure enough, there they were in the end. And they didn't just win the game by a point or two. They won it by 9 points.
It was just such a cool fourth quarter. It did feel a little bit like the game had gotten away from them. And as soon as they switched into that zone, there was just this intensity. It looked like they were having fun out there. There's Matisse again in this fourth quarter. Very, very impressive work to make their biggest comeback since 2008, which is awesome.
It's tremendous. Yeah, the Sixers had not erased a 20-point deficit in a game since that point in time. And we're probably burying the lead here. And it's hard to gauge what's the more important storyline. Maybe short term, the biggest storyline and headline from that game on Sunday was Sixers make a incredible, resilient, impressive comeback. Big picture storyline was that it was their first win on the season in a game in which Joel Embiid did not play. I think more than home road, we talked about this at length the last game, Lauren. It's trying to figure out how to get by when you don't have Joel Embiid. Certainly Sunday was not the first time. It's not going to be the last time on this season. So the more the Sixers can build confidence in those situations, I think in the long term, the better served the squad is going to be.
Absolutely. And after the game, the team expressed that same sentiment. It feels good to make sure that they know they can win in the absence of Joel Embiid. They know that the roster is going to shift a little bit. Guys aren't always going to be available during this crazy season. And to know that you can get it done even without your best player, so exciting. Just one more thing I wanted to add about the zone, Celts. I don't know if you saw TJ McConnell speaking after the game. He, of course, a Sixers fan favorite. But he said that zone and Matisse Thybulle's defense in particular caused them to panic. And anytime a good team is panicking based on something that you did, it's pretty cool.
It was a great quote, really insightful. And I think it even goes back to the early stages of last season. I'm not sure, probably many fans out there would not want to remember this game, but it was a home game first quarter of the seaon against the Miami Heat, and it was the first loss the 76ers suffered at home in quite some time. Miami went zone. Sixers couldn't figure it out. And I'm not saying it was that single game that started this new trend in the NBA of teams playing zone more and more frequently. But to me, that was one of the ones where you saw it that time, and then more teams began doing it after that. So this zone has been a trend that's been increasing situationally and in certain spots in the league over the last season and a half. And yeah, Lauren, that's the point. Throw a team a look that they're not quite ready for, and just to get them off rhythm and buy you enough time to begin to make inroads, get some confidence, and perhaps let a little bit of doubt creep into the mind of the opposition, which, based on what TJ said, that was a great quote that you talked about. It sounds like that's what happened with the Pacers.
And of course, we have to add that Doc Rivers called it the John Chaney matchup zone, which is such a fitting tribute to a Philadelphia legend. And to see the Philadelphia 76ers be so successful in something that was inspired by Coach Chaney, may he rest in peace, was really, really cool to see.
27 points. That was a team and game high for Tobias Harris. He was pumped up about the win afterwards.
The big thing is tonight's game was just resilience. I thought that the group that got out there, the second unit in the end of the third quarter, up until the fourth, just kept fighting. And we were able to find something that was working, and we kept going to it. And was able to make a comeback, was able to make some shots out there. So, a win is great, but a comeback win is even better. And we were pretty excited for that one right there.
As they should be, the 76ers reinforcing their stature as the best fourth quarter team statistically and record-wise in the NBA. Really good stuff. So that was the exhilarating, great moment, Lauren, on Sunday to vault the 76ers into a well-earned first time since late December, 2 straight days without playing a game. But that doesn't mean that there was no news on those 2 days. How about the Sixers, based on their 15-6 Eastern Conference best start, racking up some individual hardware as a reflection of their collective success?
No doubt about it. We had Doc Rivers named Eastern Conference Coach of the Month, and then Joel Embiid named Eastern Conference Player of the Month. And all of the Sixers that we've asked, including Doc Rivers, about these awards are saying the same thing, that individual accolades come as a result of collective success. And the Sixers are seeing a lot of collective success right now, but they feel like they have so much more to do. There are more accolades to win, but more importantly, there's a lot of betterment to undergo as a team, and they all believe that there's still many more levels to unlock. It's been cool to hear them talk about the awards they've won, but say, hey, there's still so much more to do. And if they're winning awards in an early phase of what this team could be, I think it's a pretty good sign.
This is just me speaking. I think that based on how things shook out in the East last year, where the prohibitive number one favorite, talking about Milwaukee, underperformed in the postseason, and an underdog squad, so to speak, like Miami, made it all the way to the finals. I think that at the start of this season in the East, the slate was wiped clean. There was no necessarily definitive team to beat. And I think the Sixers, after a month, have rightfully established themselves as the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. I mean, listen, I know Milwaukee's got new pieces and things to figure out. All these teams throughout the league, regardless of whether you're a contender or not, they're still working through the rhythms of this unprecedented season. But why not? I mean, the Sixers, they've beaten who's been on the schedule. They've picked up convincing wins. When they're fully healthy, they've been exceptional statistically and based on the outcomes of their games. So I don't know. I feel like when the Sixers, when they've had things clicking on all cylinders, they've certainly looked like a top team in the East.
And you talk about the Bucks having new pieces. The Sixers have new pieces. The Sixers have new starters.
Right.
They have a new coaching staff. There's so much newness on this team. So for them to be succeeding at the rate that they are this early in their time together, it could be scary. And obviously you don't want to count any chickens before they hatch. But in terms of what's been thrown at the Sixers so far, they've taken every challenge in stride and they've been very successful. So I, for one, am happy to be in the Sixers camp right now. It's really fun to watch their games, and I expect that to continue as we move forward.
Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, the first 76ers coach-player duo to receive monthly conference honors since Billy Cunningham and Moses Malone back in December of 1982. And you just rack your mind, what happened at the end of that season? If you don't know, you can look it up. But what we do know is that Doc Rivers had some thoughts. It's our delay. I should have paused longer. That's what I should have done.
No, it's okay. I was going to answer the question, but we can leave it rhetorical.
Should we leave it rhetorical?
They won the championship.
They won the championship.
I spoiled
Narrator.
it. They won the whole thing.
Narrator. : They won the whole darn thing. Doc Rivers certainly thinks he and the 76ers have ways to go before they reach their potential. So here is Doc talking about earning Coach of the Month. This was after yesterday's practice.
Yeah, not much reaction, to be honest, Lauren. I mean, it's nice, obviously, but all it means is that your players are playing well, your staff is doing well, and you're probably healthy, So I don't make much of them, to be honest, but I'd rather have them than not, I guess, because that means that your team's playing well and you're doing something right.
12 of them now, Coach of the Month awards for Doc Rivers, first since the 2018-19 season, when he was still with the Clippers.
And 2 now Player of the Month awards for Joel Embiid. So when you put that to scale in terms of how long these guys have been around, they're both racking up awards at a pretty impressive rate.
Yes, and the fact that Doc is even with Greg Popovich for the most, I mean, that's pretty good. They are not easy to come by. So well done by Doc and Joel. And listen, if we can't quite get the answer that we wanted from Doc Rivers about what Coach of the Month means to him and all the great stuff that he's been doing, because we know Doc is a modest guy, a good journalist like you are, Lauren, you go to an alternative source. So here is Seth Curry talking about Doc.
I think he holds everybody accountable. He gives us a good balance of giving us freedom on the floor and holding us accountable for our play on both ends of the floor. And, I mean, everybody's I feel like it's shaping into their roles, and we're learning what it takes to win on a nightly basis. So it's been a lot of fun to start the season.
Yeah, and I think, Lauren, that whether it was a tactical decision like going zone against the Pacers or just empowering some of the individual parts of this team, giving Tyrese Maxey the leash to play with, part of out of necessity and circumstances a month ago or so when the Sixers were dealing with health and safety protocols, but still making some of the younger guys on this team feel empowered. I think there's a lot that you can point to about why the 76ers have gotten off to such a great start in correlation with what Doc Rivers has brought to the team.
No doubt about it. And I liked that both Seth and Doc did later on in their press conferences say that they're impressed with the way they have been able to win while learning, because every team, like you said earlier, Seltz, is still learning right now, still growing together, whether you have 3, 4, 5 new players or no new players. This is still a period of growth. It's still the first phase of the season, and it's never bad to be winning while you're growing. So I liked to hear that from this team, who has been pretty modest about their success. It is good to win and grow at the same time.
Before, Lauren, we move on to Inside Access, a quick chat between you and Tyrese Maxey. Did want to go back to the zone. I think it's important we touch upon that a little bit. I mean, you think about it, the 76ers have 2 great defensive players individually that they could put at the top of that zone in Matisse Thybulle and Ben Simmons and just kind of spring them on the opposition.
By the way, 2 players recently named to the Australian Olympic team, which is very exciting. I, for one, might now have to root for Australia in Tokyo. But yes, this was a very impressive showing from both Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle, who has a lot of experience playing in the zone. And when we talked to Matisse after the game, a lot of his critics going into the draft said that he wouldn't be able to play defense in the league because he played too much zone in college. And he said that it's definitely ironic that he was able to now lead the team through a zone situation and come out with a win. I loved hearing him sort of get the revenge on the haters.
Both Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle had 4 steals in the game against Indy on Sunday. For Matisse, all 4 of those steals came in the decisive fourth quarter. And I really liked seeing Lauren Matisse get out there, draw the and one, successfully convert it. A little fist pump from Doc Rivers. That was, in my opinion, the sequence that essentially put the 76ers in position to take that game, as we see a couple of the clutch baskets from Furkan Korkmaz. I think this is the play right here.
And it's interesting because Matisse has told us a few times that his game starts on the defensive end. The way a lot of players find it easier to play defense when the offense is clicking, Matisse finds it better to lock in offensively when the defense is clicking. And we saw that for sure in the fourth quarter. Offense is something that he continues to work on, skills that he continues to craft, but those defensive skills are already so sharp, already so elite. Tobias Harris called him the zone captain after the game. They were all in a great mood reflecting on what happened as soon as they switched into the zone. And it was cool to hear them give Matisse some props. He's obviously had a slower start this season due to an injury in the preseason, but he is really rounding into form. I believe 21 steals in the last 9 games, which is pretty crazy. He's been doing a great job.
That's insane. That is just an insane number. Ben Simmons, an insane defender. He shared his thoughts on the zone following the Sunday win.
Deflections, just trying to give them different looks and make sure they're not getting easy shots. Indiana is the type of team that wants to go one-on-one. So when you have Matisse and I at the top of the key, it's kind of tough to do that, not knowing who's gonna pick you up. But once they threw it into Sabonis, it's hard for him also. You have 2 guys, reaching from behind trying to get steals. So it's just a different look.
Love the shades from Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, so good on the court, also so good in the outfit game. And I don't think we talk about that enough on 7-6 Live. So props to Ben for taking some risks with the fashion, but to me, they were working.
Indeed, no doubt about it. In a locker room, on a podium, wherever. Something that's worked for the 76ers this year, Tyrese Maxey, the young man working through his first 2 months of the season. He's always got some great bounce, whether it's on the court or on the Zoom line.
Absolutely. He's a pleasure to talk to, always bringing positivity, I know, to his teammates, but also to us media folk, and I got to talk to him this morning. Hey, Tyrese, you guys have won 2 of your first 3 road games on this trip, and you haven't lost a road game yet when all the starters play. How does it feel to start getting into a positive rhythm on the road in your first NBA season?
It feels great. It feels great to go on the road and know that we can be successful on the road. I mean, it's going to be big down the stretch. And, we take pride in trying to win every single game. It's a long season, of course, a lot of games, a lot of ups and downs. But, every time you lace them up, you go out there and you try to compete and try to get the W.
You've talked about enjoying playing for Doc Rivers, and on Monday he was named Eastern Conference Coach of the Month. What about his coaching style do you think is so effective for you guys?
It's been great. It's a dream come true. He's tough on all of us. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He always tells us how it is, keeps it 100. And I think that's a reason why he's who he is today. And he's the Eastern Conference Coach of the Month for a reason.
Tyrese Maxey, thanks so much.
What more could you ask for out of a head coach than keep it at 100? That's all you can ask if you're a player. Keep it 100.
And I love that all the players consistently talk about how Doc holds them accountable, which oftentimes means he tells them things they might not want to hear, but they appreciate the feedback. They appreciate the honesty. This is a group that's clearly willing to learn and willing to trust what Doc has to tell them. And so far, it's been pretty successful across the roster.
Speaking of successful, the Charlotte Hornets, as of late, a successful team, 3 straight wins over some solid teams. Recently, they knocked off the Indiana Pacers, Milwaukee Bucks, and their last time out, they defeated the Miami Heat in overtime. So the Hornets building confidence. They will not have scary Terry Rozier tonight. He is out. At least that was the latest update from the Hornets before we started the show. But they do have Gordon Hayward, who's playing really well, Lauren, and we're talking about these monthly awards. They also have the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month as well.
Yeah, this Hornets team is a little frisky. They maybe are overperforming compared to what people thought they were going to bring. And Doc Rivers in his pregame press conference said he believes this will be a playoff team. And it's always good to get reps against a team that could be a playoff team. So this Hornets team, like you said, not to be underestimated. They've notched some really quality wins over the last few days. And Hayward, LaMelo Ball, both been excellent.
Important to note that this is the 3rd and final meeting between the 76ers and the Hornets. Early on in the season, there was a 2-game series at the center. The 76ers beat them by 15 the first time and 17 the second game. No Cody Zeller that time around for the Hornets, so that's something worth noting as far as this matchup is concerned. Let us do the Tissot keys to the game, and I'll go first tonight, Lauren. My key is follow the ball, and this is when you're on defense, 76ers, because the Hornets, they have an insane assist percentage. Their assist percentage is 71.5%. That means the percentage of baskets made that are assisted on. So that's nearly 3/4 of their made field goals have assists. Think of LaMelo, think of Devontae Graham. They have some great ball handlers. Obviously, no Terry Rozier tonight. That's a big one. But effective passing has been key to Charlotte's success this year.
Could be another opportunity for the Sixers perimeter defenders to show what they got.
Get those hands
Silver
up.
lining.
Yes.
My key to the game, Celts, is also about assists, but on the other side of the ball. I said sharing is caring. The Sixers average 23.6 assists per game, which is not one of the top numbers in the league. The Sixers are at the top in a lot of things. They aren't assisting at a super high rate, but in the first 2 games against Charlotte, they had 34 and 35 assists, and they were able to beat them pretty handily. So I believe if they can share, things will go well once again.
Tremendous. I wouldn't disagree with that. One single iota. I agree. Great key. So this tonight starts a back-to-back for the 76ers. They're going to be at home tomorrow against the Portland Trailblazers. So a busy stretch. Then they have the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday. Then they start a 4-game West Coast swing next week. But before we get out, Lauren, want to mention, I think most people know this, but if you do not, it is National Women and Girls in Sports Day. I will state for the record that you are a female in sports, just to dispel any myth about
It's true.
that. We have a woman in sports on this platform, and we are very grateful. Obviously, you are one of several outstanding females in our little Studio 76 family, along with Allie Pinter on social, Nina Raspa on the sticks for video, Maggie Zerby with a little bit of everything. Listen, we have a great crew, but I did want to ask you, because I always just love to pick the brains of people, any specific inspirations for yourself that you reflect upon and think back on this National Girls and Women in Sports Day that have been particularly helpful for you?
It's a good question, Celts. I have to shout out those same women that you just mentioned, because they're the ones that are inspiring me on a day-to-day basis, always giving me a support system to rely on in what is still a very male-dominated industry, but we're seeing a lot of improvement, a lot of young women breaking into the space who I am very proud of, whether I know them or not. For me, my biggest inspiration might not be a surprise. I'm going to have to go with Doris Burke, who we spoke to about a week ago, a little over a week ago. That interview is on the Sixers YouTube channel. You should definitely check it out if you want to hear Doris's takes on the 76ers, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. But she's someone that's always inspired me. She covers all 30 teams in this league at an incredibly high level. She does her research, and then she shows up with confidence every day. And the way she covers all 30 teams has inspired me to cover the one team that I cover at a higher level. Because if she can do it for all those teams, I should be able to do it for one. So I always thank Doris for the way she prepares, the way she leads, and her kindness on a personal level has always impressed me as well. So shout out to Doris Burke, the GOAT.
I think, Lauren, at least for me, in addition to seeing all the different posts today from yourself, other amazing female content creators on National Women and Girls in Sports Day, I think the best sentiment that I saw from a lot of female content creators is like, this is very nice that we have this day, but it'll even be better when we don't have to even look at the fact and acknowledge differences in genders and that sort of thing in a space like this. So I think the more, obviously, the better. And cheers to a day where it's just like a thing, a normal thing that we don't even have to make a big deal out of for that reason, that it's just normalized to that extent.
I appreciate you saying that. I do believe that every day should be Women and Girls in Sports Day. I believe every month should be Black History Month. We are in February right now, but it shouldn't just be February. That's something that you and I and some of our colleagues talk about a lot. So I appreciate that sentiment for sure. And it's always a pleasure to be a woman in sports in this Sixers community. Shout out to the fans that are still watching and listening to me ramble about something like this. We really appreciate you guys tuning in.
All right. Big thanks to you, Lauren. Thanks to Ryan Coletti and Trevor Gaffney on the sticks. We'll be back at it tomorrow for the next edition of 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot. Enjoy the game.